Imagine this. You're on your wedding night, surrounded by the remnants of what was supposed to be the happiest day of your life. But as you sift through your new husband's belongings, you find something, a photograph, a name, a memory you've tried so hard to bury. And in that moment, your world shatters. The man you just vowed to spend your life with is the same man who raped you years ago. For Dr. Angela Carter, this wasn't a nightmare, it was her reality. And what happened next would shock a community, divide opinions, and end in a brutal act of vengeance. This is the story of how a fairy tale wedding turned into a chilling crime, a story of trauma, betrayal, and murder. In 2015, Dr. Angela Carter, a brilliant and respected Florida physician, married David Grayson, her former college lecturer, and the man she believed was her soulmate. Their wedding was a picture-perfect celebration, a fairy tale come to life. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect union lay a dark and horrifying secret. On their wedding night, Angela made a discovery that would unravel everything she thought she knew about the man she had just married. What she uncovered wasn't just a betrayal. It was a revelation so shocking, it would lead to an unthinkable act of violence. This is the story of how love turned to vengeance, and how a wedding night became a crime scene. This is not just a story about a crime, it's a story about trauma, revenge, and the devastating consequences of buried secrets. It's a story that left a community in disbelief, questioning how someone so respected could be capable of such a horrifying act. For Angela, it was a reckoning with a past she had tried to escape, and for David, it was the exposure of a dark truth he thought would never surface. But for everyone who followed this case, it became a chilling reminder of how fragile trust can be, and how far someone might go when pushed to the edge. Narrator voice, mysterious and foreboding. What Angela discovered on her wedding night was more than a secret. It was a revelation that would change both of their lives forever. The man she had just vowed to love and cherish was hiding a dark past, one that connected him to the most traumatic moment of her life. And in that moment of realization, something inside her snapped. What followed was a chilling act of vengeance, one that would leave a community in shock and a courtroom divided. But how did it all unfold? And could anyone have seen this coming? Angela and David's love story began like something out of a romance novel. They met when Angela was a medical student, and David was her charismatic college lecturer. Despite their professional boundaries, their connection was undeniable. David was charming, intelligent, and seemed to understand Angela in ways no one else did. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and before long, they were planning their future together. Friends and family described them as the perfect couple, destined for a lifetime of happiness. But as the wedding festivities wound down and the couple retreated to their honeymoon suite, Angela's world was about to be turned upside down. While unpacking David's belongings, she stumbled upon an old photograph, one that sent a chilling wave of recognition through her. It was a picture of David from years ago, taken during a time Angela had tried desperately to forget. In that moment, the pieces fell into place. The man she had just married was the same man who had raped her when she was a vulnerable teenager. For Angela, the discovery was more than a betrayal. It was a reopening of old wounds. The trauma she had worked so hard to bury came rushing back, overwhelming her with a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief. How could the man she loved be the same person who had caused her so much pain? And what would she do now that she knew the truth? In the days following the wedding, Angela's life became a whirlwind of emotions. The man she had trusted, loved, and married was the same person who had shattered her life years ago. The betrayal was unbearable, and the trauma she had buried resurfaced with a vengeance. Angela found herself trapped in a nightmare, unable to escape the memories of her assault and the horrifying reality of her marriage. Sleep became elusive, and her once bright future now felt like a prison. As the days turned into weeks, Angela's pain turned to rage. She began to plot, not just an escape, but a reckoning. In her mind, David had taken everything from her, her innocence, her trust, and now her future. She was determined to make him pay for what he had done. But how far would she go? On the night of the murder, Angela's plan was set into motion. She prepared a romantic dinner, masking her intentions with a facade of normalcy. David, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her, sat down to eat, unaware that it would be his last meal. As the evening progressed, Angela's resolve hardened. She waited for the right moment, and then she struck. In the aftermath, Angela's emotions were a tangled web of guilt, satisfaction, and despair. She had exacted her revenge, but at what cost? The life she had built was now in ruins, and the weight of her actions began to settle in. When police arrived at the scene, they found a gruesome crime scene and a distraught Angela. At first, she claimed it was an accident, but the evidence told a different story. Blood spatter, the murder weapon, and Angela's erratic behavior all pointed to a calculated act of violence. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered Angela's journal, detailing her plan for revenge and the trauma that had driven her to this point. As the investigation unfolded, police quickly pieced together the events of that fateful night. Angela's initial story of self-defense began to crumble under the weight of the evidence. Her journal, discovered during a search of her home, became a key piece of the puzzle. In its pages, detectives found detailed entries outlining her plan for revenge, proof that the murder was not a crime of passion, but a premeditated act. For Angela, the arrest was both an end and a beginning. The weight of her actions had finally caught up to her, but so had the chance to tell her story, to explain why she had done what she did. As she was led away, the community was left reeling, grappling with the shocking revelation that one of their own was capable of such a crime. The trial of Dr. Angela Carter became a media sensation, drawing national attention. Prosecutors painted her as a cold-blooded killer, pointing to the premeditated nature of the crime. But her defense team argued that Angela was a victim herself, a woman pushed to the brink by years of unresolved trauma. They presented evidence of her assault, her psychological state, and the journal entries that revealed her inner turmoil. The prosecution's case was strong, but the defense's argument struck a chord with many. Was Angela a calculated murderer, or was she a victim of a system that had failed her? The jury's decision would hinge on this question, and the outcome would leave a lasting impact on everyone involved. As the trial progressed, the case sparked a national debate. Supporters of Angela saw her as a symbol of the failures of the justice system, a woman who took matters into her own hands because no one else would. Critics, however, argued that her actions were inexcusable, no matter the circumstances. The case became a flashpoint for discussions about trauma, justice, and the limits of self-defense. After weeks of emotional testimony and intense deliberation, the jury reached its verdict. Angela Carter was found guilty of second-degree murder. The judge, acknowledging the complexity of the case, sentenced her to 20 years in prison. For Angela, the verdict was a bittersweet resolution, a punishment for her actions, but also a chance to finally confront the trauma that had haunted her for so long. The sentencing marked the end of one chapter, but the beginning of another. For Angela, prison became a place of reflection and perhaps redemption. For David's family, it was a small measure of justice, though it could never erase the pain of their loss. The case left a lasting impact on the community, sparking conversations about trauma, justice, and the limits of the legal system. For some, Angela's story was a cautionary tale about the dangers of taking the law into one's own hands. For others, it was a stark reminder of the long-lasting effects of sexual assault and the need for better support for survivors. In the end, Angela's story is one of tragedy and complexity, a reminder that the line between victim and perpetrator is not always clear. It challenges us to confront difficult questions about justice, trauma, and the human capacity for both cruelty and resilience. As we unravel this story, we want to hear from you. What would you have done in Angela's situation? Was her decision to take justice into her own hands justified, or did she cross a line that can never be uncrossed? Let us know in the comments below. Do you see her as a victim, a vigilante, or something in between? Do you think Angela's actions could have been avoided if the justice system had handled her assault differently? Could this tragedy have been prevented, or was it an inevitable outcome of her trauma? Share your thoughts below. We're curious to hear your perspective. Before we move on, let's pause for a moment. Do you think Angela's sentence was fair? Vote in the poll on your screen. Too harsh, too lenient, or just right? Your opinion matters. Here's a challenge for you. Pause the video right now and think about how you would have reacted if you were in Angela's shoes. Would you have confronted David, gone to the police, or taken matters into your own hands? Let us know in the comments. We'll feature some of the most insightful responses in our next video. Just when the case seemed closed, a shocking revelation emerged years later. New evidence came to light suggesting that David may have had other victims, women who had never come forward out of fear or shame. This discovery reignited the debate about Angela's actions. Was she not just a vigilante, but also a whistleblower who exposed a predator the justice system had failed to stop? For Angela's supporters, this new evidence was proof that she had acted not out of malice, but out of necessity, to protect others from suffering the same fate. But for her critics, it raised even more questions. Could Angela have found another way to expose David without resorting to violence? And what does this revelation mean for the legacy of her case? This twist forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about justice, trauma, and the lengths people will go to when they feel they have no other choice. Angela's story is far from simple. It's a haunting reminder that sometimes the truth is more complicated than it seems. From a fairy tale wedding to a shocking murder, Angela Carter's story is a tragic reminder of how unresolved trauma can lead to unthinkable actions. Her journey, from victim to vigilante, challenges us to confront the complexities of justice, trauma, and the human capacity for both pain and vengeance. While Angela's actions were extreme, her story highlights the long-lasting impact of sexual assault and the flaws in a justice system that often fails survivors. It forces us to ask difficult questions. What drives someone to take the law into their own hands? And how can we, as a society, prevent tragedies like this from happening again? If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Crime Storyteller for more gripping true crime cases. Your support helps us bring these important stories to light. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.